John Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker. To say that the markets have been roiled would be an understatement. Goldman Sachs puts a 1 in 5 chance that we might be heading into a recession. Is that all true? We're going to check in right now with Nancy Tingler. She's the CEO and Chief Investment Officer of Laffer Tengler Investments. Great to see you, Nancy. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me, John.
Okay, so everybody's worried. The R word is back in the lexicon. What do you think? Are we in trouble, or is this a short-term issue because of market uncertainty over Trump tariffs largely?
I think you're 100% right. Just a quick sort of primer on how the markets work. The algorithms, which are computer programs, read the headlines, and they buy and sell without any fundamental input because they're not critically thinking. And then the hedge funds sort of follow suit to see if they can make some money on the trade. And so it creates a lot of volatility in the short term. But if you step back and look at the fundamentals, the reason that the GDP number for Q1 has been revised negative is because purchasing managers accelerated imports before the tariffs, and imports are a negative deduction against GDP. So the more you input, the lower GDP. It's calculated as a—
So it's kind of a false, that's kind of a false number then.
100%. It's like an accounting gimmick. And so—
Wow.
Yeah, so people, and this happened in 2022, the last time we heard that there was going to be a recession. We are seeing a deceleration in the economy, but not a recession. And if you listen to the companies, and we do, what you're hearing from them is that, you know, things are pretty good. They're using AI to improve productivity, so that may result in fewer jobs. But we still have 7.7 million open jobs in the U.S., which is about 1 for every person that's looking for a job. So things are pretty good.
Yeah.
And the market's making the adjustment, I think.
Okay, let me ask you about Fed Chairman Jerome Powell this week. He came out, it was kind of interesting. You know, there's a lot of talk about the tariffs and what that may do to inflation, but Chairman Powell called tariff-based inflation transitory. What is he telling us?
Well, I think it takes a lot of nerve for him to bring back the word transitory, because he used it with inflation and he was wrong for a very long time.
Right.
But what he's telling you is that it's kind of if we end up with reciprocal tariffs, which we probably will on April 2nd or sooner, we're getting, you know, leaks out of the White House that they're making progress. And so we may get lower tariffs sooner. What will happen is either there will be some tariffs that go up and some that go down. So we actually think it could be deflationary.
The tariffs, you know, we're talking about select countries. For the rest of the world, and a lot of them, we don't have any tariff stuff involved with goods coming from other parts of the world. So this is only a few select countries out of the entire picture, although they are big trading partners.
No, you're right. But they export to us considerably more than we export to them. I mean, we're a consumer-based economy, so we kind of consume what we make and then we import the rest. But and we don't export a lot. These companies countries do not have much negotiating leverage, and so I think that's why the administration, as chaotic as it is, I think that's why they're confident that they're going to get what they want.
Nancy, you talked about 2022. And that previous recession scare, you recall that it featured some flashings of 99% chance of going into recession. And it turned out to be way, way overblown. In fact, the markets did quite well after that point, as you know, until just about a month ago. What do you make of that?
Well, I think, you know, so the Federal Reserve has like over 400 PhD economists, but they no longer use their model. They are now what they call data dependent. So they're looking backwards at data that is constantly changing. So remember when we learned that the jobs numbers were off by 817,000 jobs? That's the kind of thing that they're looking at. So what you have to do is what investors like us do, and that is you have to look at the underlying companies. And we're still seeing growth. Earnings growth in the S&P 500 should be about 11% this year. It was over 14% in the fourth quarter, which is the best quarter we've had since 2021.
Tell me about these job cuts in Washington, D.C. The Trump administration has been extremely bullish on trying to trim back government jobs. And I think last month, for the first time, we saw job growth, not governmental jobs, but jobs, outpace these government jobs. And this is precisely what they're angling for, right?
Right, because government jobs don't contribute to GDP growth. And private sector jobs do. So if you think about like a construction job, the multiplier effect on that, or a manufacturing job throughout the rest of the economy, is really incredible. Whereas a government job is more static in its impact. Of course, the person that's working spends money, but they're not creating other jobs as manufacturers and makers of goods do. So you want more in the private sector. It's kind of the whole idea. And then we can't, of course, continue to sustain these levels of debt and the deficit. So I think that is what has roiled people in the media and in Washington, but the rest of the country is saying, well, that's good. So less of my tax dollars.
That's interesting. So this gets into this short-term view versus the long view. Yeah. My sense is the short term, because of Doge, because of tariffs and uncertainty, we could be in for some bumps and bruises. But the long term, what do you see?
We're really bullish. We think that this is analogous to the 1990s when I was managing money and you had higher inflation, 3%, higher interest rates. The Fed funds rate was above where it is now at 5%. And the 10-year was at between 7 and 8. So an environment where you would think stocks wouldn't do well, but because of productivity, and that was the internet then, now it's cloud computing and AI. Because of that, productivity improved and stocks. Yeah, people don't remember this, but from 1995 to 1999, the market was up a minimum of 20% every year.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable run. This is during Bill Clinton's second term, and then yes, and by the way, it was the last time we balanced a budget in this country.
That's right.
Yeah,
you're 100% right.
He did it along with Newt Gingrich. They got together and said, we got to do this. I don't know where we've gone off the rails. Obviously, COVID was an impetus. Trump won. They spent a lot as well, but COVID was a big chunk of that. And then Biden, he went crazy on spending too. They've all done it.
Yeah, and the Great Recession, they spent a lot of money. Rates are not. I don't know about you, but my first mortgage was 13, 14%.
No, I know. People forget. If you were around in the 70s, you were living through real trouble. Just your general outlook going through this year and into next. Are you bullish on where we're going to be? And do you think some of these things coming out of Washington, austerity in government, cutting government, and I know there's going to be a lot of job loss there, how do you think this is all going to wash out?
Well, so John, there's 3 million government employees. So if we get a reduction, it's a small percentage of the total workforce, which is about 165 million, I think. So what we expect is that there might be a downward blip in consumer spending. So though we haven't seen that, as the B of A CEO said, they're seeing an increase in spending. So if the consumer stays robust, then I think you can continue to see stock prices accelerate, particularly because our investing theme is old economy companies that are pivoting to the new technologies. Poster child of that is Walmart. They're using digitization, robotics, cloud computing, and AI. And it's helped their margins and their earnings growth. And then the suppliers of those picks and shovels. We're in the early innings of the spending on AI. And I think we have about $1 trillion more in CapEx spending to go between now and 2028, just based on what's been committed. And then if we get tax cuts extended and we get corporate tax cuts and 100% expensing, which is in the bill that passed Congress, this economy is going to pick up quite nicely. That's
interesting. Nancy Tingler, we appreciate your time. We're going to have you back. Deal?
Thanks, John.
Okay, great to see you. Thank you. When we come back on Newsmaker, in 1989, a rapper burst on the scene with his huge hit, Bust a Move. We're going to meet Young MC coming up next on Newsmaker. He's going to join me in the studio. He is a Scottsdale resident, and his career, although many of you may not realize, has done very well in the years since. We'll get into that with Young MC coming up next on Newsmaker. Welcome back to Newsmaker. In 1989, an American rapper burst on the scene with his song Bust a Move. Huge hit. His debut album, Cold Rhymin, was a monster hit, reaching number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. This sounds like Casey Kasem. He won a Grammy for the best rap performance that year. He also collaborated with Tone Loc on the songs Wild Thing, Funky Cold Medina, and he is still having tremendous success with his old music and a bunch of new music that he's released in 2024. He lives right here in the Valley. Young MC, Marvin Young, joins me on Newsmaker. Great to see you.
Great to be seen, man.
I
Good to
appreciate
be
you being here, man.
Hey, man, this was a long time coming, so I'm looking forward to this.
This is cool because not only do you live here, which I'm not sure a lot of people knew, but you've had a really interesting career. You're at USC, studying economics, I believe, right?
Yes, bachelor's in economics, yeah.
And right when you're finishing, this song explodes. Bust a Move happens when you're still in college.
Well, I wouldn't say that it explodes. It came out, it came out finals week of senior year, and my parents basically gave me the summer to get music out of my system. So literally by the next February, it was platinum, and I had won a Grammy. So that was that meant that it was going to stay in my system.
I can call you Marvin?
Yes, sir.
Marvin, what did your parents say when this started to happen? And they probably had, I think your parents from Jamaica, correct?
Yeah.
And you end up in New York?
Yes.
And out in LA. They're watching this, and they probably didn't think this was going to be your path.
Well, watching this in 2025 is different than watching this in 1989. So we don't have, everybody doesn't have cable, there's no internet. So a lot of it is word of mouth. Yeah, the video may be playing on MTV, but you can't really judge success by that. It's only when coworkers started coming back and family members and people that they knew, friends, started coming back unsolicited saying, oh, your son's doing this, your son's doing that. You know, why are you still working? That kind of thing. That when that got back to, and that's when it really became successful. Me saying that I was having success out there was just like Marvin making it look good. But when people around them started coming back, that's when it was.
Was that kind of for you success to have your parents go, oh, you really have got something going on here?
To an extent, it was more them being able to leave me alone so I could do.
They did, because you'd become legit. I mean, you showed them that you. Then you've got to keep this going, though.
Well, yes and no. You keep it going in terms of trying to make more music and grow and that kind of thing, but also making smart decisions with the connections and the money and the business opportunities that you have at the time. I felt that I felt that I made the most of that. So I learned about publishing really early on in my career. So a lot of the horror stories you hear about people getting their publishing takeaway or whatever, I didn't necessarily suffer from that as much. I still went through my, bad record deal phase like everybody does, but I was able to capitalize on a lot of what I did, but more than most.
But you walking in to the record company with your education, USC, economics, they had to be like, oh man, really? We got to do a deal with this guy?
Well,
I mean,
the interesting thing is, I would sit across from people and they would know that I was as educated, if not more educated than they were. Yeah. In all honesty, it probably cost me some deals because there's some companies that don't want to do deals with informed people.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So, but
that's kind of their lifeblood,
right?
Taking advantage of the artist.
Yeah. So for me, I was able, and I had success by that time walking into a lot of those meetings. I'd gone through my gauntlet of the record business with my first album, and also going through with watching Tone Loc's success and being part of those songs. So I knew the rigmarole. I knew everything that was going on in terms of how to put a record out, how to write a record, the rights that I was supposed to have, all those things. So I was able to kind of make the most of that over the years.
Tone Loc was a big inspiration to you. You're very good friends to this day.
Yes.
Closest person to you in the music business.
In the music business,
and
absolutely.
You helped write Wild Thing because his lyrics were too raunchy.
Well, yeah, I guess, but the thing is, that wasn't my decision. Like, he wrote his lyrics, and then they came to me and says, "Oh, say Marvin, we need to have something a bit cleaner for whatever." And
yes.
And I'd never written for anybody before, so I was kind of reluctant to it because I had principal's office at the time, and I'm like, well, why aren't you putting my record out? Why do I have to write for someone else? But I went ahead and did it, and it was the best thing that I'd done because him having such success with an up-tempo record prompted the record label to make a track like Bust a Move for me to write to. So that success said, okay, well, let's give Marvin something to dance, danceable for him to put out.
Tell me about your writing process. I'm always really interested. I'm a musician, so I'm interested in this. Your writing process, especially when you're defending a record that's a big hit, you've got Bust a Move going, you're touring. How do you then write and find time to write and quiet your mind to write music for the next follow-up, which is always the toughest?
Well, it's an impossible task because you're not just talking about the quality of music that you create. The problem with hip-hop is, at least at that time, it was really seen as a kind of fly-by-night niche genre. You didn't have a lot of follow-up albums like you do now. So everybody's looking to say, okay, where's the next Bust a Move? Well, the analogy I use is like Bust a Move was like a first girlfriend to a lot of people. It was the first time that they had heard rap music, the first time they had heard something clean, danceable, something that wasn't from the East Coast, all of those things. They had no preconceived notions about me before they heard Bust a Move. But I come with my next record, you have all the preconceived notions about me. So that's a hill that's pretty much impossible to climb. So I learned that, put out my second record, it went gold, it was, fine, but I just kept putting the music out. And I wasn't necessarily judging it on how people regarded the music as much as how I regarded the music.
And you've done that to this day, even though everybody associates you with that Grammy and Bust a Move, you've done other stuff. And I think this release of your new music and this video, Kinetic, is outstanding.
All done locally, by the way. So recorded the track at the Salt Mine, and I've been recording at the Salt Mine Studio Oasis. Shout out to Don Salter and everybody over there. I've been doing my music there since probably about 2010 or so. And then the video we shot at a place called Flow Productions, and that's pretty new. A friend, Jared Jasinski, he does a lot of stuff with sporting events and providing the visuals for things like that. And he has a great setup here. And I'm one of the first, if not the first, to do a music video there. And anybody that sees the video, it looks impressive, but to hear that it was all done in Arizona surprises a lot of people, especially the people that live here. And I want to get that out.
That's great.
Sure people know that they have access to all that stuff here.
When you write, and I think you were trained on piano. You took piano when you were a kid.
I took piano, so it just made me not scared to hit the keys.
Okay, just enough of a vocabulary to be dangerous, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But when you write, how do you do it? Do you just get beats going first? Or do the words come first to the beats?
Okay.
How do you do it?
Okay. When I was younger, when I wrote Bust a Move, they would give me the beat, I would write to the beat, and that would pretty much be it. Now I'm at the point where I'm so I'm so anal about it, to be honest, that I'm hearing everything from the first drum beat to the last pen stroke.
This is like Freddie Mercury stuff.
I don't know what his writing process was, but sometimes I'll hear a set of beats or a melody and come up with a melody for a hook or a cadence for a hook, and then that'll lock it in. Sometimes I'll come up with a set of lines and I'll think that those lines would lead into a certain song title. Sometimes it'll be a drum loop or a sample or something like that. It's all over the place.
I always marveled, say with Elton John, that he was writing music to words that were written. That's a little different than the way most pop songs are done. The song is first, the lyrics are like, I got to write words to this. That's kind of that formula. In your world, though, it sounds like it's just whatever you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are riffs and repeatable things and that kind of stuff. So I kind of know I have a hit or something that I could, perceive as a hit if I have that repeating section.
Do you know it's a hit? When you write it, do you know this is gonna fly?
How can I put it? I know that I'll be happy performing it a couple hundred times on stage. If I know that I can be in front of people, even if they didn't know it, and I'd be able to perform it to them well, then it's a hit to me.
Okay.
But depending what else is out on the charts, depending on what other artists are coming with other music, how a record actually becomes a hit in the marketplace, it's really not up to the artist.
You've had a bunch of stuff placed in movies and television. That kind of keeps the ball rolling, right? Does that keep the revenue stream coming in?
It does, and also it exposes the music to a lot of new people, younger people. So Bust a Move, Bust the Move itself is 36 years old. So if I have a teenager or a 20-something-year-old come up to me, they probably weren't hearing the record when it was out.
Right.
But oh, I saw it in Dude, Where's My Car?
How
you know,
that's thrilling for you, right?
It is, and I like the fact that I've been able to make something that can be used in so many different types
And lasts.
of art. Yes, yeah, that people won't get sick of. The ironic thing, you're a music maker yourself. Bust the Move is 4 minutes and 20 seconds. It has 4 16-bar verses, a 16-bar break, 4 8-bar hooks, and the intro, I think, is 12 bars. If I was to try to make that today, they would make me cut the break out. They'd make me cut at least 1 verse and 1 or 2 hooks out. They'd have me make it around 310 to 320, and then you wouldn't have the song that you have. So
Wow.
that's something that I've had to do in terms of changing my songwriting. And okay, I got to tell my story a lot quicker. Instead of peaking in the 3rd verse, a lot of times I'll peak in the 2nd verse because everybody's worried about the short attention span.
Yeah.
Do I put the hook of the record at the beginning of the record? All of these things, you know, you try and be creative about it, but if you want to sell it in this marketplace, you got to, you know, adhere to it.
Outside of the music, what do you love to do?
Oh man, I mean,
Or are you? Is that?
No. I mean, I play my video games. I fall into YouTube rabbit holes. I watch sports. I try and keep my mind occupied.
You big SC fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, it's going up and down, you know, depending on the sports. But
Sure.
yeah, it's been good.
What surprised you about Arizona?
I tell people it's the biggest small town I've ever seen in my life. So like, it's
So true.
massive population and you know, widespread in terms of landmass and everything. But you know, I can point to 4 people in here that know, you know, some of my best friends, and it's like it's not that's been interesting. And what I enjoyed was coming here and just being Marvin, the guy that made music, as opposed to someone who knows somebody at Warner Brothers and knows somebody at Universal. Oh, Marvin, if you have a demo, I can slide it to my friend.
Finally, as people are watching this, you're on stage at the Toyota Arena in Ontario, California, because
Yes.
we're taping this on Thursday. How long's your set?
This is not typical. I'm going to be on stage between 8 and 9 minutes. Now,
Wow.
and this is something where usually I don't do a set that short, but it's a show that has literally 22 acts, and it's inside the Toyota Arena, so they have a pretty limited amount of time that they can have for stage. So it was something I had agreed to because we had a great show at at a big park at Grand Park in LA last September. It was an amazing show, 33 acts, and I was one of them. Great crowd response, and they, you know.
Do you still get nervous?
I think everybody gets nervous the first 10 to 30 seconds, and my nervousness comes from making sure that everything's working.
That you can hear?
Yeah, that I can
hearing it?
hear, they can hear me, that I remember, you know, the second line comes after the first line, and then once I get through that, I'm like, okay, you know, now I'm here. So,
Would
and I
people
wouldn't even
know if you messed up lines?
Well, here's the thing. If I show that, you know, if I show that I messed up and, you know, I'm stomping around on stage and not saying anything, but I've played it off a lot of times. I'll tell you a quick story if I can tell you.
Sure.
I was doing a live taping of Showtime at the Apollo, and it was my second album, a lot of pressure, the whole 9 yards.
Deal.
It was a big deal. The breakdown came, and I'm hyping up the crowd, and I, you know, get really enthusiastic of telling them to wave their hands, and I realized that the next verse has started, and I've not started saying the next verse. So 4 lines go by, because I'm like, I'm not going to jump in the middle because nothing's going to rhyme. I know where to pick up my lyrics from the choreography. When the dancers start moving back, that's my 5th line. Boom, I jumped in the 5th line. Nobody ever knew I made a mistake.
Yeah, it's not the mistake, it's the recovery.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Marvin,
Thank
I
you, John.
appreciate it.
No problem,
Marvin
man.
Young, Young MC. Check out Kinetic, the new album is?
The new album will be hopefully coming soon, but check out Kinetic in the video. Everything's online. YoungMC89 is my Instagram, so people can follow me there.
I appreciate it. We're glad you're here.
I'm
this
glad
is
to be
cool
here.
to have you in Arizona.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Young MC. We're back in a minute on Newsmaker. Special thanks to Young MC for joining me here on Newsmaker. That was fun. We'll see you next week.